If you take a moment to scan your cityscape, especially its downtown area, it's hard not to notice the striking transformation since 2019. The endless sea of cranes dotting the skyline signals a surge in construction activity, mainly focused on erecting towering, upscale apartment complexes. This phenomenon isn't confined to just the trendy hubs like Miami or Austin. It's unfolding even in unexpected places like Cleveland and Pittsburgh. The rapid expansion of remote work, coupled with the decline of traditional downtown functions, raises an important question. Who will inhabit these often extravagant yet compact living spaces scattered across America? Are we witnessing the formation of a massive apartment bubble that's being overlooked in the middle of all this suspicious development? You can easily identify these projects from afar. For instance, in Detroit, there's the Residence at Water Square, a sprawling 496-unit, 25-story building slated for completion this month. Boasting a swimming pool and an array of luxurious amenities, you can't miss this building sitting in the middle of a neighborhood with nothing else like it. Such developments are not unique to just Detroit. They're emerging in numerous cities across what was previously considered flyover country. In Columbus, Ohio, there's anticipation building around the Estrella, a 19-story tower with plans to break ground in 2025. This project promises to add another dimension to the city's skyline, blending modern living with luxury in the middle of Ohio. Chicago is set to host a particularly significant addition, the infamous 400 Lakeshore Drive. This 72-story apartment tower will soar 858 feet into the air, with construction slated to start this year. It's a testament to the city's ever-evolving architectural landscape, promising to offer residents breathtaking views of Lake Michigan and the city's skyline, alongside a suite of high-end amenities that redefine luxury living in the heart of the city. But the concern for many is that all of this luxury construction is coming at a time when it's clear that rents and demand are dropping in America. Bill McBride, who I consider one of the best analytical minds in real estate, wrote about this clear trend back in January. He cites the National Multifamily Council Senior Director of Research, Chris Brenhoaz, who stated that the apartment market continues to record decreasing rent growth and rising vacancy rates as it absorbs the highest level of new supply in more than 30 years. In their quarterly market tightness survey, you can obviously spot this clear trend, which hints at a complete collapse in the apartment market. In 2022, this reading got as high as 95, indicating a wave of demand that was rather unprecedented in the post-2000 period. Since that peak, the graph has fallen to 23. That's a 76% decrease, which is surprisingly close to what we saw in the 2008 crash and marks the 6th consecutive quarter of declines. If those factors aren't alarming, perhaps we should consider the findings from ApartmentList.com's 2024 report. It reveals a notable decline in median rents as we enter the new year, with the national rent index dropping below zero for the first time since the events of 2020. Vacancy data is no different in this regard, with today's numbers coming in at 6.5%, about the same as they were in the pre-2020 days. This is even more concerning when you consider the history. After bottoming out in October 2021, the National Vacancy Index has now been easing steadily for over 2 years. This easing has plateaued in recent months but has not stopped entirely. As of January, the Vacancy Index sits way up here, the highest reading since September 2020. And there's good reason to expect it could rise even further in the year ahead. Why? Well, right now, it's all about the supply. Steve Bassam at John Burns Research and Consulting writes nearly 1 million units are under construction at the start of 2024, close to all-time highs in the US. And around 670,000 units are projected to be delivered this year. If we look at this graph published by him, you can see how in many cities throughout the country, there has been an absolute explosion in the construction of apartments. Phoenix, for example, had 17,000 new units built in the last 12 months and is expecting 51,000 more to come to market after the construction process is complete. Now, if we dig into Phoenix for 1 second, you can see why there is going to be pain ahead. In the last year and a half, the city has gone from a record low vacancy rate of about 3.2% to 6.82% as of the latest reading in January of this year. So what you're seeing is falling demand and falling rent prices, while at the same time there is a massive surge of new inventory. Simple economics tells us that when you add more of something, aka supply, and at the same time demand is falling off a cliff, you naturally get lower prices or higher vacancies. This theme is happening throughout the US. In fact, it wasn't talked about much in the last couple of years, but the US was actually building a record-breaking amount of apartment buildings. You can hear Lawrence Yun explain exactly this in a recent piece for CNBC. Take a listen.
And this trend is just moving to the Sun Belt cities.
In 2022, apartment building went gangbuster, 40-year high activity. So we still have a residual shortage of housing. So before 5 million, now 4 million in my estimation.
U.S. home builders declared a recession in August of 2022.
So the story is supply has been exploding and demand has been falling. While it is true that the number of new building permits has been dropping, the number of multifamily units under construction remains near record levels. 2023 actually saw the most new apartments complete construction in more than 30 years, and an even greater number of units are expected to come to market this year in 2024. So the question is, what is going to happen? Are we really going down the path of 2008, but this time it starts in the apartment sector? Well, there are two sides to this story. You see, it's pretty clear that developers have noticed that things might be very stormy in the near future. The way you can tell is by simply looking at the number of starts for multifamily structures, which is essentially a fancy way of saying the number of projects that are beginning the construction phase. This is indicated by the blue line here, and as you can tell, it's dropping off a cliff. The red line you see in the same graph is multifamily completions, and as you can tell, builders are now completing more multifamily housing units than they are starting on a 12-month basis. So in summary, what you're getting is a near record number of apartment units that are currently under construction due to construction delays from the early 2020s. This means that a large number of multifamily housing units will be delivered in 2024. But the number starting is headed straight to zero because these developers have realized that the properties they are in the process of already building are going to have a very hard time getting filled at the prices necessary to make profit or even break even. They know they are in trouble, which is actually helping and alleviating a complete disaster. In fact, if you really want to look way ahead in the future, what you can find is something called the Architectural Billing Index. This is a monthly survey conducted by the American Institute of Architects among architecture firms across the United States. The survey asks participating firms about their billings for the previous month and their expectations for billings in the near future. Now imagine you're planning to build a massive apartment building. Before you start the construction, you obviously need a plan. This is where architects step in. They create the plans. Now, if a lot of people are asking architects to draw plans for big apartment buildings, it naturally means there will soon be a lot of construction happening to actually build those apartments. The ABI is like a sneak peek into how many people are asking for these plans. When the ABI number goes up, it means architects are busier with new plans for apartment buildings, which tells us that more of these buildings will be constructed soon. It's like knowing there's going to be a big wave before we ever see the cranes or trucks. Currently, the ABI is on a downward trend. Since its peak in 2021, the index has plummeted by over 20%, now resting at 45.8. The latest ABI reports highlights the significant challenges faced by firms specializing in multifamily residential properties. This suggests a forthcoming slowdown in new apartment supply over the next few years as developers recognize the looming issues. Remember, it takes a very long time for plans to get complete, the construction to start, and for people to start moving in. We're talking about years here. So if this index is declining like this is now, it means that there likely won't be much new supply, not only in 2025, but for many years ahead of that. When we examine the data on new privately owned housing units started in buildings with 5 units or more, it becomes evident that developers are acknowledging the necessity for a slowdown. The decline is stark when we observe the number of foundations being laid in the large 5+ unit multifamily sector. Peaking at 609 in November of 2022, this figure has sharply decreased to 314, marking a 48% drop reminiscent of the 2008 downturn. Essentially, we're witnessing a trend where numerous properties under construction will soon hit the market, potentially leading to significant sectoral challenges. This is going to cause serious pain for apartment owners all over the country. However, there's a silver lining. Developers are preemptively halting new unit production, yet it will take time for the supply-demand equilibrium to stabilize. Most experts in this field anticipate a short-term crash followed by a long-term recovery. Despite current pricing concerns, it's noteworthy that the United States remains a premier destination for immigration and boasts a positive long-term economic outlook. Demographic projections indicate continued population growth, while the rest of the world enters a serious slowdown on this front. And despite the current abundance of supply, the future trajectory still looks promising. With millions of people being added to the American population annually, the demand for housing, especially multifamily, will persist. Now, how much of this population will move into these luxury high-rises in a lot of these crime-filled cities remains to be seen. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video.